So let me ask, do you have kids?
No, I do not have kids.
Are you afraid to bring kids into the world?
I don't say I would be afraid to, but I'm very close to my nephews, and I like kids. I feel bad for them because they're so screwed. It's one of the reasons
Yeah.
I try to. It's one of the reasons I do my show is just because, you know, the only reason I have anything around here, and there's plumbing, the reason there's anything is because there's people who came before me. They made a lot of different advances. They put a lot of work in, and I've benefited from that. Well, I have an obligation to the people who come after me to keep the thing at least as good, or to at least try to make it some better. And since the whole thing's working to try to get completely screwed, I feel an obligation to those people, because the reality is that people keep forgetting is that if we lose this time, it's over.
Yeah.
It's no more of this
Yeah.
hard men create good times, and good times create soft men, and soft men create hard times. That's not going to happen again. They're going to put us all in electronic digital prison, and that's going to be it. There's not going to be any fighting next time. That's why you have to stand the ground now, but the people don't care to. They just don't care to.
So because of time, man, we like totally, I got to put you on the hot seat, but I got to ask, how do we turn this? Can it be turned around, and how, if so?
It can be, it could, in a theoretical way, it can be turned around. I've done all of Spooner's trial by jury. It took me 28 episodes. People need to understand jury nullification. If they understood jury nullification, we need a very small group of people. Anything that requires us to get majorities and votes, that's crap. That's not going to happen. First, you have to get jury nullification, because then it doesn't matter what laws they pass. They can't get convictions. If they can't get convictions, then you can ignore them with impunity. See, once you have that, then you can start buying time to decentralize. The system needs to be massively decentralized. You cannot have these centralized systems. And that's why people have to understand that this pushing this constitution and getting together, and we the people are going to rise up, that's never going to happen. It can never happen. If it was going to happen, it would have happened. The system moves in one direction for 250 years, bigger government, fewer rights, more debt, more taxes. It's the exact same system all over the world. There's not a single government that's ever been installed where the people got freer and freer and freer as they voted. It's never, ever happened. The government's never gotten smaller and smaller and smaller anywhere in the world. And so people have to understand that they fundamentally don't understand what's happening, that they fundamentally misunderstand the construct and the narrative. And they have to understand that decentralization is the way. And the very first step is understanding the people's rights in jury trials, so that they couldn't take the jury trial away from people without raising a lot of eyebrows. It's true, they've manipulated the thing into, it's not even recognizable. It's such an absurd kangaroo system now. But if people understood it, we wouldn't have to get the legislature to do something. The people are supposed to have the power. They don't understand that the power comes in that jury box. That's where the power actually is. That's when you get to go in and vote no on the law. Period. You get to vote no. If the judge tells you, oh, well, you must follow this and must follow that, no, you have a right to say, no, I'm not convinced. You have that right. And the people have been so convinced by endless propaganda that that's not the way it works, that the court tells you the law and the jury is there to decide these made up facts that the judge lets in. If people understood, you want power, the most important political power in this country is inside the jury box. That's where it is.
Amazing. So what's the first step to start learning, discovering what's really going on? For those who just don't know, the first step is, I know they should start tuning into your podcast for sure.
They should listen to my show. That's why I make it. But,
right. And then after that, what?
You know, I've got hundreds of shows, and people need to understand a lot of it's too complicated. Well, it's not I make it simple, but there's a lot of issues. But the simplest one I would say is, like I said, is a jury nullification system. If the people who claim to be in favor of minorities in those minority areas, they run around and raising money and basically race baiting, if they actually cared, they teach those people about jury nullification.
Yeah.
And if those people understood it, system would come to a halt, baby. They could not get the convictions on all these bogus drug offenses and all stupid crap they haul people in on, minor amounts, all this police misconduct, all sorts of things could be halted. But they don't teach them that.
They don't want them to know.
because they don't want them to know, because they're controlled,
Yeah.
because they're there to make sure that people stay divided, fighting amongst themselves, instead
Yeah.
of seeing the light and understanding the real issue here. The real danger is the state. I'm not interested in using the state to tell anybody what to do, but I also am completely opposed to anybody trying to use the state to tell me what to do.
Yeah.
We don't need the police to do anything except for the basic stuff. When you tell people that the police are a huge problem because they enforce any and every made up bullshit law you dream up, look at the masking and the vaxxing and closing businesses. That stuff went on all the time. And the police were there to enforce it. When you ask people, what's the point? They say, well, what would you do about murders? Okay, well, then police can investigate murder or robbery. Okay. Rape. Okay. All right, go down the list. They don't ever say minor drug possession.
Right.
They don't say that.
Yeah.
Drugs have been used to get the police into every aspect of our lives, every kind of illegal stop, every kind of outrageous infringement of our rights is supposedly to stop drugs, And the United States government doesn't have any authority to stop drugs at all. They have zero authority to outlaw drugs, none. And people used to know that. And there's an easy, simple proof. They had to pass a constitutional amendment to outlaw alcohol. Why? Why didn't they just ban it? I don't understand. Why didn't they just outlaw it like they do all these drugs? Why didn't they just put it on a schedule?
Right.
Because they don't have any authority to. And
Amazing.
it's just right there in front of people's face, but they don't see it. And so
Well,
they have
the
to understand.
The government is the biggest. They are drug dealers themselves now. They set up where you can make sure you can do some drugs. You want some drugs? Here's a needle for you. And we're not going to let the cops
CIA runs a
stop you.
drug deal. Everybody knows the CIA is at the top of the drug pyramid. Everybody.
Lee, give me a quick answer to this because your time is up, but you're so interesting. Also, I got to tell you, I don't know if you know who the Hake Report is, James Hake of the HakeReport.com. He highly recommended you, man. I'm glad. He told me, look, you got to get Lee. You got to get him. You want a grown-up conversation, you got to have Leon. And he was totally right about that, man. You wanted to, Hake is number one, the Great White Hope number two. You're one of the smartest white men on this side of heaven. And that's amazing.
Well, thank you.
Well, one quick answer to this.
Yeah.
Is the U.S. Supreme Court any good now? Should we just not have faith in that? I mean, not expect anything good from that too?
Well, there's nothing in the Constitution in Article 3 that makes the Supreme Court's rulings the so-called law of the land. Nothing. Yeah. They're there to hear a case and decide one case. That's it. That's all they're there to do. They're not there to bind us all. In fact, there's personal jurisdiction requires that you be joined in the case before any kind of case can ever bind you. Yet, what do they tell you? As soon as the state court rules, we're all bound. And if they went back to the reality that the court is just there to hear individual cases, that's it. And it binds the parties to those cases. And if they make a bad decision, they can make another one. No other court below them has to follow that. If people understood that, who would care about the Supreme Court? Have you ever been involved in a Supreme Court case?
No.
I haven't either. None of us have. So why are we talking about it, right? Because of the brainwashing that they've made it into this idea that once the court rules, then we're all bound. What person who's sane would agree to such a crazy star chamber arrangement of a group of people they don't even control, who don't even have to decide unanimously, who then we're all bound forever, for all times? Anybody in the future? It's nonsense. It doesn't make any sense, but it's part of the control system.
Was that the original intent of the U.S. Supreme Court?
No, it was definitely not the intent of the Supreme Court. John Marshall, in his early decisions in Marbury versus Madison, in a case that's complete crap that everybody's taught in law school, where there was no jurisdiction, he just sort of dreamed this thing up, this idea that the court is there and it sits. Everybody knows about Andrew Jackson, who said after one of the decisions, he said, Justice Marshall's given his opinion, now let him enforce it. Right. They're not all powerful. They're not a co-equal branch. See, they talk about three co-equal branches. The branches aren't co-equal. Can the president remove the Congress? No. Congress can remove the president. The Supreme Court, who picks them? The president. And they have to get put on there by the Senate. Well, they sit for good behavior. They don't sit for life. Good behavior. The Senate can remove a Supreme Court justice anytime they want. There's absolutely nothing that stops them but they've dreamed the system up so that we're stuck in this system where the people sit for decades and decades and decades, and you can't get out of it. And then they give bad opinions, and we have to supposedly wait decades and decades to try to get another case up in front of the court to see if we can get that's the farthest thing from anything to do with the people being in charge. It's turned on its head.
What a mess.